Have you ever felt your heart race when talking to someone you're attracted to? That moment when your mind goes blank, your palms sweat, and every word feels like a stumbling block. You're not alone. Countless men wrestle with this invisible wall of insecurity, especially around women, where confidence seems just out of reach. But what if I told you this isn't a life sentence? That the ancient philosophy of Stoicism holds the keys to dismantling these fears, not through tricks or manipulation, but through timeless principles that forge unshakable self-assurance. Picture this: 2,000 years ago, Roman emperors and philosophers faced battles far deadlier than a first date, yet they walked with a calm, unwavering presence. How they mastered the art of controlling what they could, accepting what they couldn't, and focusing on the only thing that truly builds confidence: inner virtue. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about uncovering the man you already are without the weight of self-doubt. Stoicism teaches us that insecurity isn't a flaw, it's a signal. A signal that we've handed our self-worth over to external validation, to the opinions of others, to outcomes we can't control. And here's the liberating truth: true confidence doesn't come from convincing her to like you. It comes from no longer needing her approval to like yourself. That shift changes everything. Suddenly, conversations flow without force, attraction grows without effort. Because when you're anchored in your own worth, people feel it. In this video, we're diving deep into 25 Stoic practices tested by time that will systematically dismantle the anxieties holding you back. You'll learn how to reframe rejection as freedom, how to silence the voice that says you're not enough, and how to cultivate a presence that draws people in naturally. These aren't quick fixes, they're lifelong tools honed by thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus, who understood that the strongest men aren't those who never feel fear, but those who act despite it. By the end, you won't just feel more confident around women, you'll carry yourself differently in every room. This is Stoicism applied. This is confidence earned. Let's begin. The first practice is foundational because everything in Stoicism begins with this distinction. What do you actually control in any interaction? Her reactions, her opinions, the outcome of the conversation, not even slightly, but your own thoughts, your actions, the energy you bring into the room. Those are yours to command. This is what the Stoics called the dichotomy of control, and it's the ultimate antidote to insecurity. Imagine walking into a room, not with your mind buzzing about whether she'll laugh at your jokes or find you interesting, but with total focus on what's yours to govern. Standing tall, meeting her gaze without hesitation, speaking with intention. That shift alone changes the game. Here's why it works. Insecurity festers when we tie our worth to things outside our power, like whether someone approves of us. But confidence grows when we invest our effort where it actually matters. Think of it like sailing. You can't control the wind, but you can adjust the sails. A Stoic doesn't waste energy cursing the weather. He masters the art of sailing. Apply that here. You can't control if she's attracted to you, but you can control whether you show up as the kind of man who attracts, rooted, present, unfazed by external validation. Let's get practical. Start small. Next time you're in a conversation, catch yourself when your mind drifts to, "Does she like me?" and refocus on, "Am I fully here?" Lock in on the basics: steady eye contact, shoulders back, listening instead of just waiting to speak. These are your levers. The irony: when you stop seeking approval, you become more magnetic. Confidence isn't about being flawless, it's about being grounded in what you can own. And that's a power no one can take from you. This practice isn't just about women, it's a mindset for life. The Stoics used it to face exile, war, betrayal. Compared to that, a conversation is child's play. Master this, and you'll carry yourself differently in every room, not because the world changed, but because you finally understood where your real power lies. Let's talk about one of the most counterintuitive yet powerful tools in the Stoic arsenal: negative visualization. At first glance, it sounds like the opposite of what you'd want to do. Why would anyone deliberately picture things going wrong? But here's the secret. By mentally rehearsing the worst-case scenario, you strip it of its power to paralyze you. The Stoics called this Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils, and it's a game-changer for overcoming fear. Picture this: you're at a bar and you see someone you're drawn to. Your heart starts pounding and your mind floods with what-ifs. What if she ignores you? What if you say something awkward? Negative visualization flips the script. Instead of avoiding those thoughts, you lean into them. You ask yourself, okay, what's the absolute worst that could happen? Maybe she turns away, maybe your voice cracks. Maybe the whole table laughs. Then what? You're still breathing. The room hasn't collapsed. You haven't been struck by lightning. The truth is, even the worst outcome is survivable, often forgettable. And once you internalize that, fear loses its grip. This isn't about pessimism, it's about preparedness. Ancient Stoics like Seneca would regularly visualize losing their status, their wealth, even their loved ones, not to dwell in misery, but to realize they could endure it. Apply that same mindset here. When you mentally walk through rejection and realize it wouldn't break you, something shifts, the stakes feel lower, the pressure fades. You start seeing interactions for what they are, moments, not life or death trials. Here's how to put it into action. Before approaching someone, take 10 seconds to visualize the worst-case scenario in vivid detail. Feel the embarrassment, sit with the discomfort, then notice how it passes. You'll often find that the anxiety beforehand is worse than the reality. And when you do step forward, you'll carry a quiet confidence because you've already faced the monster in your mind. The beauty of this practice, it works for more than just dating. Public speaking, job interviews, tough conversations, any situation where fear holds you back. By embracing the worst, you free yourself to aim for the best, because when you're no longer afraid of falling, you can finally focus on flying. Now let's talk about a Stoic superpower that transforms how you experience every interaction, especially those that don't go as planned. It's called Amor Fati, Latin for love of fate, and it's not just about tolerating life's curveballs, but embracing them as fuel for growth. Marcus Aurelius scribbled this idea in his journals 2,000 years ago, reminding himself to greet every moment, pleasant or painful, with the same unwavering question: how can this make me stronger? Think about the last time a conversation with someone you liked fell flat. Maybe she seemed disinterested or you fumbled your words. Instinct screams to replay it on loop, cringing at every misstep. But Amor Fati flips the script. Instead of resisting the discomfort, you lean into it. You ask, what did this reveal about where I can improve? Was I too attached to the outcome? Did I lose myself in seeking approval? Suddenly, what felt like failure becomes a masterclass in self-awareness. This isn't just philosophical fluff, it's practical armor. Dating, like life, is unpredictable. You can't control whether she says yes or no, but you can control how you let those experiences shape you. The Stoics knew this intimately. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire amid betrayals and plagues, yet he wrote, "The obstacle is the way." That's the essence of Amor Fati. Every rejection, every awkward silence, every missed connection isn't a roadblock, it's the path itself. Here's how to live it. Next time an interaction goes south, pause and reframe it. Instead of, "that was horrible," try, "what can I learn from this?" Maybe it revealed a need to work on your listening skills. Maybe it taught you to relax into the moment instead of performing. Even better, write it down. Keep a journal like Marcus did, turning setbacks into stepping stones. Over time, you'll catch yourself welcoming challenges because you've seen how they sand down your rough edges. The magic of this practice, it doesn't just change how you view dating, it changes how you view life. Traffic jams, job rejections, rainy days all become teachers, and when you stop fighting reality and start loving it, you radiate a rare kind of confidence. Not the bravado of someone who's never been rejected, but the quiet strength of someone who knows nothing can break him. because every no is just fertilizer for your next yes. There's a reason elite athletes visualize their races before stepping onto the track. They know rehearsing the struggle makes the real thing feel familiar, not frightening. The Stoics took this a step further with Premeditatio Malorum, a practice where you don't just imagine challenges, you dissect them. Seneca put it bluntly: he robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. In other words, planning for discomfort isn't pessimistic, it's strategic. Take silence in conversations, a common trigger for insecurity. Most men panic when a pause stretches too long, scrambling to fill it with forced jokes or rambling stories. But what if you'd already walked through that moment in your mind? You'd know silence isn't a verdict on your worth, it's neutral. Maybe she's gathering her thoughts. Maybe the music's too loud. Instead of sweating, you lean back, let the quiet breathe, and rediscover the power of patience. This is what Seneca meant by preparing in times of peace. You drill for storms so they don't capsize you when they come. Rejection is another arena where this practice shines. Picture this: you ask someone out and she declines. The untrained mind spirals. Was it my looks, my voice? But the Stoic, he's already played this scene out. He knows rejection often has nothing to do with him. Maybe she's seeing someone, maybe she's busy, maybe her cat just died. By preemptively accepting these possibilities, he avoids the trap of personalizing every no. Here's how to apply this like a Stoic. First, identify your fears: stuttering, awkward exits, being ignored. Then write the script: if I freeze up, I'll take a breath and recenter. If she says no, I'll thank her and move on. Mentally rehearse these responses until they feel automatic. The goal isn't to eliminate nerves, it's to rewire your reaction to them. The brilliance of this technique is its universality. Warriors used it before battle. Speakers used it before speeches, and you'll use it to transform anxiety into action. Because when you've already stood in the fire in your mind, the real heat doesn't scorch, it tempers. What if confidence wasn't something you had to chase, but something you could build from the inside out? This is where Stoicism flips modern dating advice on its head. Most people think confidence comes from getting more matches, more compliments, more validation. But Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and became one of history's greatest teachers, saw it differently. Seek not for things to happen as you wish, but wish for things to happen as they do. That single line holds the key to unshakable self-assurance because it ties your worth not to outcomes but to virtue. Let's break that down. Virtue to the Stoics wasn't about being perfect. It was about living with courage, wisdom, justice, and self-discipline. These weren't lofty ideals, they were daily practices. Imagine walking into a room knowing your value isn't determined by who smiles at you, but by how honestly you express yourself. That's the shift. Instead of thinking, do they like me? You ask, am I showing up as my best self? When your focus moves from external approval to internal integrity, everything changes. Rejection stings less, conversations feel lighter, and ironically, people are drawn to that kind of grounded energy. Here's why this works. When you tie your confidence to something outside your control, like her reaction, you hand her the keys to your self-worth. But when you anchor it in virtues you control, like speaking truthfully, listening deeply, or staying composed, no one can take that from you. Think of it like a tree. Most men try to paste on confidence like decorating branches. The Stoic grows it from the roots. Water those roots, your character, and the rest thrives naturally. So how do you apply this? Start small. Next time you're in a conversation, focus on one virtue: courage to hold eye contact, wisdom to ask thoughtful questions, self-discipline to resist interrupting. Notice how it feels to act from principle rather than panic. Over time, this becomes your default. You'll catch yourself thinking less about how's this going, and more about who am I choosing to be right now. Epictetus didn't just teach this, he lived it. As a slave, he had every reason to see himself as powerless. Yet he wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." That's the ultimate goal, not to control how others see you, but to master how you see yourself. Because when confidence comes from living in alignment with your values, it doesn't waver with someone's mood. It's bulletproof, and that's the kind of presence that doesn't just attract women, it earns respect. Ever noticed how problems shrink when you zoom out? That argument that felt earth-shattering yesterday seems trivial after a good night's sleep. The Stoics took this idea further with the view from above, a mental exercise where you imagine your life from a cosmic vantage point. Picture this: you're standing on a street corner, nervous about approaching someone. Now pull back mentally, see the city, the country, the planet floating in space. Suddenly, that conversation isn't a life-defining moment. It's a speck in the vastness of time. That's the power of perspective. Marcus Aurelius used this practice daily. As emperor, he faced decisions affecting millions, yet he'd write reminders like, "Think of the totality of all things and how small your share," not to diminish himself but to ground himself. When insecurity creeps in around women, this shift is revolutionary. That fear of saying the wrong thing, it's not a storm, it's a ripple in an ocean. The girl who didn't text back, she's one face among billions. This isn't about dismissing your feelings, it's about freeing them from false importance. Here's why it works. Our brains evolved to amplify threats. In ancient times, overlooking danger could mean death. But today, that same wiring turns minor social friction into existential dread. The view from above recalibrates your nervous system. You start seeing interactions for what they are, brief exchanges in a long life, not verdicts on your worth. Try it now. Close your eyes and visualize Earth from space: blue marble, swirling clouds, silent majesty. Now imagine the timeline of human history stretching behind and ahead of you. Your entire life is a single frame in that film. Does that awkward moment last week still haunt you? Probably not. The Stoics called this sympatheia, the interconnectedness of all things. When you grasp your small but unique place in that web, arrogance dissolves, but so does shame. You're neither insignificant nor the center of the universe. You're simply part of the whole. Apply this before your next social interaction. Feel nerves rising, zoom out mentally. See the room as one scene in humanity's endless play. Notice how your shoulders relax, your breath deepens. You'll speak not from desperation, but from presence, because when the stakes feel smaller, you grow larger. This practice isn't about nihilism, it's about liberation. The astronaut who sees Earth from orbit doesn't stop caring. He starts caring more wisely. That's the paradox. When you stop treating every glance or laugh as cosmic significance, you engage more authentically. No performance, no pretense, just a man awake to the fleeting beauty of connection, unburdened by the weight of his own ego. That's how you turn insecurity into awe, and in that space, confidence isn't something you fake. It's something you remember. There's a reason Marcus Aurelius' private journal became one of history's most enduring works. He wasn't writing to impress an audience, but to confront himself. Meditations wasn't philosophy as performance, it was philosophy as surgery, dissecting his own reactions with unflinching honesty. This is the power of journaling your interactions, not to dwell on regrets, but to expose the irrational fears masquerading as truths in your mind. Imagine ending each day not with scrolling or distractions, but with 10 minutes of tracing your emotional fingerprints, especially those moments where insecurity flared. Start with the raw facts. She didn't respond to my text. Then dig deeper. What story did you tell yourself about that silence? Maybe I came on too strong. Maybe she's laughing about me with friends. Now challenge it. Is there evidence for that, or am I projecting my own fears? This simple act, separating fact from fiction, is how you dismantle the narratives that erode confidence. The Stoics called it prosauch, vigilant self-awareness. You're not avoiding discomfort, you're mapping its terrain so it can't ambush you next time. Here's how to practice it like Marcus did. Keep a notebook, digital or physical, and structure entries around 3 questions. What happened? Just the facts. How did I react? Emotions, bodily sensations, and what's the hidden belief here? The assumption driving your response. For example, fact: I hesitated to approach her. Reaction: heart raced. Imagined rejection. Hidden belief: my worth depends on her approval. Spotting that last part is gold. Now you're no longer fighting shadows, you're addressing the real enemy. The magic happens over weeks, patterns emerge. You'll notice the same irrational script playing out. They'll think I'm boring, I'll run out of things to say. But with each entry, you rewrite that script. Boredom is subjective, silence is natural, my value isn't negotiable. Gradually, your journal becomes a mirror showing not just your fears but your growth. This isn't navel-gazing, it's rewiring. Neuroscience confirms what the Stoics knew: labeling emotions reduces their intensity. By journaling, you're not just describing anxiety, you're dissolving it. And when you step into your next conversation, you'll carry something rare: the quiet clarity of someone who's met his demons on the page and walked away wiser. Picture a Roman general the night before battle, polishing his sword by firelight. He knows tomorrow could be his last day, yet he smiles, not from recklessness but from clarity. This is memento mori, the Stoic practice of remembering death, and it's one of the most transformative tools for dissolving insecurity. Modern men obsess over what others think of them. Ancient warriors obsessed over whether they'd lived with honor before their time ran out. That shift in focus changes everything. The Stoics didn't see mortality as morbid, they saw it as motivational. Seneca wrote letters from his deathbed urging his friends to live urgently, while Epictetus, a former slave, told his students, "Keep death and exile before your eyes every date, and you'll never have a base thought or excessive desire." Think about that power. When you internalize that your time is limited, trivial worries fade. That awkward pause in conversation, meaningless. That fear of rejection, a distraction. What remains is the raw imperative to be fully alive in each moment. History offers striking examples. When the philosopher Caius Julius was sentenced to death by Emperor Caligula, he spent his final hours playing chess. As the executioner arrived, he glanced at his opponent and joked, "See that you don't falsely claim victory after I'm gone." That's not indifference, it's mastery. He knew death was coming, so he chose how to meet it, with humor and presence. Apply that same lens to dating. If this were your last conversation, would you waste it seeking approval? Or would you speak your truth without apology? Here's how to practice this today. Each morning, take 30 seconds to acknowledge your mortality, not with fear but with focus. Whisper to yourself, "I will die. What legacy do I want this interaction to hold?" Then go into your day carrying that weightlessness. You'll notice subtle shifts. You stop laughing at jokes that aren't funny. You stop editing your opinions to please. Why? Because when time feels precious, pretense feels wasteful. The irony is profound. Most men chase immortality through others' impressions. Will she remember me? But the Stoics found it by releasing that need entirely. Like Socrates, who drank hemlock surrounded by friends, debating philosophy until his last breath. His final lesson wasn't about clinging to life, it was about embodying his values until the end. That's the real secret. When you live as if each moment could be your last, you stop performing and start existing, with a kind of effortless magnetism that can't be faked. Because nothing is more attractive than a man who isn't afraid to be fully, unapologetically alive. Most men run from discomfort, especially the kind that makes your stomach clench before approaching someone attractive. But the Stoics went straight toward it. Take Cato the Younger, one of history's most unshakable Stoics. He'd walk through Rome wearing ridiculous outfits, deliberately inviting laughter and stares. Why? To harden himself against the fear of judgment. That's voluntary discomfort in action, not masochism, but mental training. Each awkward moment was a rep in the gym of his mind. Here's the science behind why this works. Your brain treats social fear the same way it treats physical danger, flooding your system with cortisol, tightening your chest, priming you to flee. But just like lifting weights builds muscle tolerance, exposing yourself to controlled social friction builds emotional resilience. Researchers call this exposure therapy, and the Stoics mastered it 2 millennia ago. Every time Cotto purposefully embarrassed himself, he wasn't just laughing off critics, he was rewiring his neural pathways to associate discomfort with growth rather than threat. So how do you apply this today? Start small. Next time you're at a coffee shop, ask the barista an unusual question. What's the weirdest drink someone's ever ordered here? Not to flirt, just to practice sitting with the awkwardness. Notice how your heart races, how your palms sweat, and how, after a few seconds, the sky doesn't fall. That's the sweet spot. You're not trying to eliminate nerves, you're teaching yourself they can't control you. Level up by engineering slightly higher stakes. Strike up a conversation with someone out of your league, not to succeed, but to observe your own reactions when they seem disinterested. The goal isn't validation, it's inoculation. Like a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to build immunity, these exercises introduce manageable social stress to strengthen your calm. The magic happens in the aftermath. That interaction where you stumbled over your words, it becomes data, not drama. You'll catch yourself thinking, I survived that, what's actually at risk next time? Over weeks, the mountain of fear shrinks to a molehill, because confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the proof you've faced it repeatedly and kept moving forward. Cotto's real lesson wasn't about seeking humiliation, it was about reclaiming power. When you voluntarily step into discomfort, you transform it from something that happens to you into something you choose for yourself. And that shift changes everything. The guy who's unafraid to be awkward, he's the one who's truly free. Ever catch yourself freezing up because she seems intimidating? Maybe she's stunning, confident, or carries herself like she's got it all together, and suddenly your mind turns her into something more than human. This is where Stoicism throws a wrench in our instinct to label and categorize. The practice of objective judgment demands we strip away those layers of subjective storytelling and see people, yes, even breathtaking women, as they truly are, flesh and bone, no more, no less. Marcus Aurelius put it bluntly, take away your opinion about what gives you pain and you stand invincible. That intimidating feeling isn't coming from her, it's coming from the narrative you've draped over her. Think about it, what makes someone intimidating? Is it her height, her smile, the way she holds eye contact? Those are just facts, neutral data points. The intimidation is the story you're spinning. She's out of my league, she'll reject me. I don't measure up. Those aren't observations, they're projections. And they're the real barrier, not her. Here's the mental hack the Stoics used, phantasiae, the art of separating raw perception from interpretation. When you see someone attractive, your brain instantly slaps on labels: intimidating, unapproachable, flawless. But what if you paused mid-thought and dissected it? She's wearing a black dress, she's laughing with friends, her posture is relaxed, just facts, no judgments. Suddenly, she's not a goddess or a challenge, she's a person. Maybe she burns toast, maybe she hates her nose, maybe she's just as nervous as you are. The moment you see her as human, the pedestal crumbles. Try this exercise next time you feel that familiar tightening in your chest. Mentally narrate the scene like a robot would. Woman. Red hair, green jacket, holding a drink. No adjectives, no assumptions. Notice how the tension eases when you stop injecting meaning into harmless details. This isn't about reducing people to objects, it's about freeing them from the myths we create. History's best thinkers mastered this. When Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, lost everything in a shipwreck, he didn't curse the sea or fortune. He observed the facts: ship sank, possessions gone, and rebuilt his life without bitterness. Apply that same clarity here. The intimidating woman isn't a storm to weather, she's just a fellow traveler in a crowded room. And when you approach her from that place of calm objectivity, you'll find something unexpected, the confidence to speak, not because you've conquered fear, but because you've stopped feeding it. We've all heard the phrase, fake it till you make it, but the Stoics would have scoffed at that approach. Confidence isn't something you conjure out of thin air. It's something you cultivate through deliberate, repeated action. This is the discipline of action, one of the three core Stoic practices alongside perception and will. And here's the radical truth it reveals. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the habit of moving forward despite it. Think of confidence like a muscle. You wouldn't expect to bench press 300 pounds on your first day at the gym. You'd start with the bar. The same applies here. Small, consistent actions rewire your nervous system over time. Ancient Stoics called this prokopton the path of progress. It's not about grand gestures or overnight transformations. It's about the mundane, daily repetitions that seem insignificant in isolation but compound into unshakable self-assurance. Start stupidly simple. Make it a non-negotiable rule to greet one stranger every day: the barrister, the neighbor, the woman at the bus stop. Not to flirt, not to impress, just to practice the mechanics of connection, eye contact, a steady voice, an open posture. These micro-actions do two things. First, they prove to your brain that the world won't end if you initiate interaction. Second, they build what psychologists call self-efficacy, the quiet certainty that you can handle what comes next. History's greatest Stoics lived this. Epictetus, who taught while literally chained to a pillar in his early life, didn't wake up one day magically fearless. He trained himself encounter by encounter to focus solely on what he could control: his effort, his integrity. That's the key. Confidence isn't about outcomes. It's about showing up, rain or shine, whether you feel like it or not. Here's the twist most men miss. These small actions work precisely because they feel uncomfortable at first. Discomfort is the signal you're stretching your limits. The moment greeting a stranger becomes easy, level up, ask for directions you don't need, compliment someone's style without expecting a response. Each step feels awkward, but that's the point. You're not just practicing social skills, you're practicing detachment from the outcome, the core Stoic virtue. The magic happens when you stop measuring progress by external validation. Did she smile back? Irrelevant. The victory is in the doing. Over time, these tiny victories stack into something unshakable. You'll walk into rooms not because you're guaranteed acceptance, but because you've proven to yourself, through countless repetitions, that you can survive rejection. That's real confidence, not the absence of doubt, but the presence of discipline, and that's the Stoic edge. While others wait for motivation to strike, you're already in motion. Because you've learned the secret, action precedes courage, not the other way around. Every greeting, every held gaze, every unflinching moment of vulnerability, they're not steps toward confidence. They are confidence in its purest, most enduring form. There's a moment in every interaction where tension could derail everything. Maybe you trip over a chair, mispronounce a word, or spill your drink. Most men panic, scrambling to cover the gaffe like it's a crime scene. But the Stoics, they'd laugh, not just politely, but deeply, authentically at themselves. Seneca, the philosopher who tutored Emperor Nero, wrote extensively about the power of lightness in adversity. It is more civilized to make fun of life than to bewail it, he quipped. That's the essence of self-deprecating humor, not as a put-down, but as a pressure valve. When you can chuckle at your own stumbles, you accomplish two things instantly. First, you disarm the tension because laughter is contagious and people mirror your energy. Second, you reveal something rare, a man so secure in his worth that minor embarrassments don't threaten him. History's greatest Stoics modeled this. Cato, known for his iron discipline, would deliberately trip in public just to practice laughing at himself. Why? Because he understood that fear of embarrassment is often worse than the embarrassment itself. Modern research backs this up. Studies show self-deprecating humor increases likability and perceived confidence. It signals you're not trapped in ego, that you see yourself clearly, flaws included. Here's how to apply it without veering into insecurity. Imagine you fumble a joke. Instead of tensing up, grin and say, "Well, that landed like a lead balloon," or if you spill coffee, "And here I was trying to impress you with my grace." The key is tone, warm, not bitter. You're not begging for reassurance, you're inviting shared laughter. Seneca's real lesson wasn't about humor itself, it was about perspective. "We suffer more in imagination than in reality," he wrote. "That awkward moment isn't a verdict on your worth, it's just life being human. By laughing at the chaos, you do something revolutionary. You prove you're not its victim." And that's a kind of confidence no perfect performance could ever match. Ever wish you had a mentor whispering in your ear when nerves strike, someone who'd been through worse and emerged unshaken? The Stoics offer exactly that, not as theory, but as a mental hack called role model visualization. Here's how it works. When facing a daunting interaction, you summon the presence of a historical Stoic in your mind's eye, borrowing their posture, their calm, their unflinching resolve. Think of it as emotional time travel, stepping into the sandals of Zeno after his shipwreck, or Marcus Aurelius amid palace intrigue, and asking, how would they handle this moment? Let's break down why this practice hits differently. Neuroscience shows that the brain struggles to distinguish between vividly imagined scenarios and real experiences. Athletes use this to perfect jumps and throws without moving a muscle. You're harnessing it to rewire social reflexes. Picture Zeno, founder of Stoicism, who lost everything at sea, his cargo, his wealth, his entire livelihood, yet responded by sitting on the Athenian docks and studying philosophy. When you're sweating over whether to approach someone, imagine him beside you, not as a statue but as a coach. You fear rejection. "I lost a fortune in an afternoon. And yet here I stand." Suddenly, your stakes feel smaller, your spine straighter. This isn't about pretending to be someone else. It's about activating archetypes of resilience already within you. Marcus Aurelius perfected this. In his private journals, he'd conjure mentors like his adoptive father Antoninus, not to idolize them, but to channel their virtues in real time. When you need encouragement, think of the qualities of those around you, the energy of this one, the modesty of that one. He wrote, apply that to dating. Before walking into a party, mentally embody Cato's indifference to gossip or Epictetus' humor in awkward moments. Their traits become your tools. Here's how to make it tangible. First, pick a Stoic whose story resonates, maybe Seneca's grace under Nero's tyranny, or Musonius Rufus teaching philosophy while exiled to a barren island. Study their defining moments, then create a trigger phrase. For Zeno, shipwrecks forge kings. For Epictetus, chains can't touch my mind. When anxiety flares, whisper it and feel their presence anchor you. The magic lies in specificity. Don't just think, be brave. Ask, what would Seneca do if his joke fell flat? He'd likely smile, pivot, and refuse to let a hiccup derail the conversation. Now you're not just coping, you're inheriting 2,000 years of practiced poise. This practice does more than calm nerves. It connects you to something timeless, the realization that your struggles aren't unique but universal. Every man who's ever lived has faced rejection, embarrassment, the ache of self-doubt. The Stoics didn't transcend these feelings, they transformed them into fuel. And now, through the simple act of visualization, their fire becomes yours. So the next time your voice shakes, remember, you're never truly alone. You've got an army of philosophers at your back, and their whispers are louder than your fears. What if every rejection slip, every unreturned text, every awkward silence could actually strengthen your confidence instead of chipping away at it? That's the radical promise of contempt for external goods, a Stoic practice that sounds harsh but delivers liberation. Musonius Rufus, the philosopher who taught Epictetus, put it bluntly, wealth and status are indifferent, only our choices can be good or bad. Translate that to modern dating, and it becomes a revelation. Your worth isn't tied to her response. It's anchored in how you choose to show up with integrity, courage, and self-respect. Let's dismantle the illusion. Most men measure their dating success by external markers, matches, dates, physical intimacy. But the Stoics saw these as preferred indifference, things that might be nice to have but say nothing about your character. Imagine two men at a bar. One leaves with a phone number but lied to get it. The other leaves alone but spoke his truth without apology. Who walked away richer? Musonius would argue the second man, because he traded in the only currency that matters, virtue. This isn't sour grapes philosophy. It's a recalibration of what truly builds lasting confidence. History offers a striking example. When Musonius was exiled to the barren island of Jaros, a punishment meant to break him, he didn't lament his lost status or comforts. He planted a garden and taught philosophy to anyone who'd listen. The lesson: adversity reveals what you're made of. Apply that to dating. A no doesn't diminish you unless you let it. In fact, it can sharpen your clarity. Did you compromise your values to impress her? Did you hide your quirks to fit in? These are the real failures, not the lack of a date. Here's how to practice this today. After any interaction, ask yourself two questions. Did I act with integrity? And did I attach my worth to her reaction? If you catch yourself thinking, if only she'd said yes, I'd feel good about myself, that's the signal to recalibrate. Write it down. Her answer is her business. My honor is mine. Over time, you'll catch something extraordinary happening. The less you need validation, the more freely you express yourself, and paradoxically, the more magnetic you become. The magic lies in the reframe. Rejection stops being proof of inadequacy and becomes a test of your principles. Did you stay kind when ignored? Did you respect boundaries when tempted to push? These choices, not her responses, define your growth, and when you internalize that, something shifts. You stop seeing dating as a performance and start treating it as a practice ground for the man you're becoming. Because confidence isn't about collecting yeses, it's about knowing deep in your bones that every no leaves your integrity intact. Imagine your body reacting before your mind can catch up. Your palms get clammy, your voice cracks, and suddenly you're spiraling. That split second where anxiety hijacks your system is exactly where Stoicism plants its flag. Epictetus described the mind as having a gatekeeper, one that can either let every impulsive reaction storm through unchecked or pause long enough to ask, is this useful? That moment of hesitation isn't weakness, it's the birth of real control. Let's break down the physiology. When anxiety hits, your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, floods your body with adrenaline. Your pulse spikes, your muscles tense, and logic takes a backseat. This isn't a design flaw, it's ancient wiring meant to save you from lions. But in modern dating, it misfires, treating a casual conversation like a life or death encounter. The Stoic pause interrupts that hijacking. It's the mental equivalent of slipping the clutch before shifting gears. Instead of stuttering through a sentence or nervously laughing off discomfort, you create space to ask, what's actually happening here? Am I in danger, or is my body mistaking vulnerability for threat? History offers a masterclass in this practice. When Julius Caesar was ambushed by pirates, he didn't panic. He negotiated his ransom calmly, then later hunted them down with chilling precision. That pause between stimulus and response, that's where agency lives. Apply it to dating. Say you're mid-conversation and feel your throat tighten. Instead of rushing to fill the silence or apologizing for nerves, take one deliberate breath. Notice the sensation without judgment. My hands are shaking, my heart is loud. By observing rather than reacting, you reclaim the steering wheel. Here's how to train this reflex. First, rehearse the pause in low-stakes scenarios. Spill water, freeze for 2 seconds before cleaning it up. Someone cut you in line, count to 3 before responding. These drills build muscle memory for high-pressure moments. Next, create a trigger phrase. Epictetus used "wait, let me see" as his mental gatekeeper. Yours might be breathe first, or is this mine to carry? The wording doesn't matter. The habit does. The magic lies in what happens next. That tiny gap lets you choose your response instead of defaulting to fear. Maybe you acknowledge the nerves aloud. I always talk too fast when I'm excited, turning a vulnerability into charm. Maybe you simply let the silence hang, proving to yourself it won't kill you. Every paused reaction is a vote for a new identity, the man who isn't ruled by his own biochemistry. This practice isn't about suppressing emotions, it's about meeting them with awareness. The Stoics didn't avoid fear, they walked through it with eyes open, and that's the ultimate shift. When you pause, you're no longer a passenger to your anxiety. You're the driver, and that's when people start noticing something different about you, not because you never feel nervous, but because you've mastered the art of moving forward anyway. One of the most humbling truths Stoicism teaches is that the woman who makes your palms sweat isn't some mythical creature. She's just as human as you are. That's the heart of sympatheia, the Stoic concept of interconnectedness. It's the realization that beneath the makeup, the smiles, the seemingly perfect Instagram lives, every person carries their own invisible battles. Hierocles, a lesser-known but brilliant Stoic thinker, gave us a tool to apply this, his circles of concern. Picture a series of rings radiating outward. You're at the center, then family, friends, community, strangers. Most people treat those outer circles as abstractions, but Hierocles urged pulling them inward, not by forcing connection, but by recognizing shared humanity. Here's why this matters for insecurity. When we pedestalize someone, we freeze them in our minds as judges rather than allies. Their laughter becomes a verdict, their silence a condemnation. Sympatheia melts that illusion. Think about the last time you saw someone attractive across a room. Your mind probably raced with projections. She's so out of my league, she'd never understand me. But what if you zoomed out? Maybe she's nervous about a work deadline. Maybe she's replaying an awkward moment from yesterday. Maybe she's just hoping someone will see past her appearance too. This isn't wishful thinking, it's the raw truth. Every person you meet is fighting a hidden war, and that awareness levels the playing field. History offers a poignant example. When the Stoic philosopher Posidonius was dying from crippling arthritis, his students wept at his suffering. His response, "Pain, you are just a sensation. However severe, you cannot make me say you are an evil." Now imagine applying that same lens to dating. Rejection stings, but it's just a sensation, not a verdict on your worth. And the woman delivering it, she's navigating her own storms. When you truly grasp that, something shifts. You stop seeing interactions as performances and start treating them as exchanges between equals. Try this exercise next time you're paralyzed by someone's presence. Visualize their life outside this moment, the rushed morning, the insecurities they joke about with friends, the childhood scars they don't mention. Not to pity or psychoanalyze, but to remember, no one gets through life unscathed. That intimidating barrister, she might be grieving. That stunning co-worker, she could be drowning in debt. This isn't about diminishing anyone, it's about seeing them fully. The magic of sympatheia is that it dissolves tension without effort. When you approach someone from this place of shared humanity, your body language softens, your voice steadies, because you're no longer performing for a critic, you're connecting with a fellow traveler. And that's where real confidence grows, not from pretending you're fearless, but from knowing everyone else is just as afraid. Hierarchical circles aren't about erasing boundaries, they're about bridging gaps. You don't have to confess your deepest fears to strangers, but when you genuinely see them as people, not prizes or judges, you'll find conversations flowing more freely. Because the secret no one tells you, most people are just as hungry for authentic connection as you are. They're waiting for someone to look past the surface too. Imagine a blacksmith plunging red-hot steel into cold water. The shock doesn't weaken the metal, it hardens it. That's the essence of this Stoic practice, not just weathering rejection, but letting it temper you into something stronger. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor who led Rome through wars and plagues, scribbled a radical idea in his private journal: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. At first glance, it sounds like motivational wordplay, but when you unpack it, this principle flips rejection from a stop sign into a training ground. Let's dissect how this works in reality. When most men hear no, their brain interprets it as proof of inadequacy. I'm not tall enough, funny enough, successful enough. The Stoic rewrites that narrative. That same no is now data. My approach needs refining. My delivery was off, or maybe, just maybe, it had nothing to do with me. Think of it like a boxer studying his losses. He doesn't quit after a knockout. He reviews the tape. Was his guard too low? Did he telegraph his punches? Each flaw exposed is a chance to evolve. History offers a masterclass in this mindset. When Thomas Edison's lab burned to the ground, destroying years of work, he didn't collapse in despair. He told reporters, "There's value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Now we can start fresh." That's Stoic alchemy, transforming ash into opportunity. Apply that to dating. Every cold approach that fizzles, every ghosted message isn't failure, it's field work. You're not collecting rejections, you're collecting clues. Here's how to operationalize Marcus's insight. First, reframe your metrics. Instead of tallying wins and losses, track lessons. Keep a training log after interactions. What worked? Where did I freeze? Did I genuinely listen or just wait to speak? Second, embrace the law of averages. Legendary salespeople know, the more no's you hear, the closer you get to yes. Dating operates the same way. That person who walked away didn't reject you. She filtered herself out of your journey. But the real power lies in the third step, gratitude. Sounds counterintuitive, right? Thankful for rejection. Yet Epictetus, born into slavery, insisted difficulties reveal genius. When you start seeing obstacles as teachers, their sting fades. That woman who ignored you, she just gifted you thicker skin. The awkward silence, it trained you to sit with discomfort. Over time, you'll catch yourself craving these moments, not despite their difficulty, but because of it. This isn't about toxic positivity pretending rejection doesn't hurt. It's about mining the pain for fuel. Marathon runners know the wall at mile 20 isn't the end, it's where the race truly begins. Similarly, that knot in your stomach when someone turns away, that's your starting line, because the man who's been forged by no's doesn't just survive rejection, he's fortified by it. And that's when you realize the obstacles weren't blocking your path, they were building your legs. Here's the dirty little secret no one tells you. That surge of panic when you think she's judging your shoes, your job, or your height. It's built on a lie, not because those things don't matter in some superficial sense, but because you've confused them with you. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was literally owned by another human being before earning his freedom, drew a line in the sand 2,000 years ago that changes everything. Some things are up to us, some are not. Your looks, your bank account, even your social status, those belong to the second category. They're aprohetic outside your control, but how you carry yourself, the integrity you bring to interactions, the courage to be vulnerable. Those are prohetic, they're yours, and when you stop tying your worth to the former and start investing in the latter, insecurity doesn't stand a chance. Think of it like this. Imagine two men walk into a bar. One's wearing a $5,000 suit but fidgets when speaking, desperate for approval. The other's in a thrift store flannel but meets your gaze with steady calm, amused by life. Who commands the room? The Stoics would argue the second man every time because he's anchored in what can't be taken from him. That's the power of indifference to indifference, not apathy but clarity. It's the realization that your height won't make her laugh at your jokes, your car won't teach you to listen deeply, and no amount of status can compensate for the absence of self-respect. History offers a brutal example. When Emperor Vespasian levied a tax on public toilets, his son Titus complained it was beneath their dignity. Vespasian held a coin to his nose and asked, "Does this smell?" The point, even money, the ultimate societal measuring stick, is neutral until we give it meaning. Apply that to dating, that woman who ghosted you after seeing your apartment. She didn't reject you, she filtered herself out of your path, because anyone who confuses your worth with your square footage was never going to see the real you anyway. Here's how to practice this today. First, audit your self-talk. When you think, "She won't like me because," finish that sentence. Is it something you control? If not, cross it out mentally. Second, embrace radical ownership. List 3 traits that are unequivocally yours. Maybe your humor, your curiosity, your resilience. Next time you're in conversation, focus on expressing those, not performing some script you think she wants. Notice how the energy shifts when you're no longer hustling for approval, but simply sharing what's already yours. The irony is delicious. The less you care about the indifference, the more authentically you show up. And the more authentically you show up, the more people are drawn to you. Not because you've tricked them, but because they've finally met you. Not the resume, not the wardrobe, not the polished facade. Just the unshakable core that no bad haircut, awkward silence, or rejection slip can touch. That's the Stoic edge. When you stop apologizing for what you can't change and start doubling down on what you can, you become something rare, a man who's truly free. There's a silent revolution happening in your conversations right now, one most men miss completely. You're crafting responses before she finishes speaking. You're mentally rehearsing your next witty remark. You're treating dialogue like a tennis match where the goal isn't connection, but proving you belong on the court. Enter Musonius Rufus, the Stoic teacher who turned listening into a martial art. His students didn't just hear words, they absorbed meaning with the intensity of monks transcribing scripture. Why? Because true listening isn't passive, it's the ultimate act of presence. A radical declaration that someone else's thoughts matter more than your ego's need to impress. Picture Rufus' classroom in ancient Rome. While other philosophers lectured, he facilitated dialogues, not debates. The distinction was everything. In debates, you listen to counter. In dialogues, you listen to understand. One of his surviving teachings captures it perfectly. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we may listen more and talk less. But here's where modern men twist it. We think listening means waiting for our turn to speak. Stoic listening means surrendering the spotlight entirely. It's looking for the logos, the universal reason hidden in her words, not just the hooks for your next story. Science backs this approach. Studies show people rate conversational partners as significantly more attractive when they practice deep listening, mirroring body language, paraphrasing for clarity, asking open-ended questions. But the Stoics would argue this isn't manipulation, it's respect. When you truly listen, you're honoring Epictetus' maxim. First learn the meaning of what you say and then speak. Applied here, first learn her meaning, then respond. If a response is even needed, try this reframe next time you're in conversation. Imagine Rufus hovering behind you, whispering, what is she actually saying beneath the words? Maybe her rant about work isn't about work at all, it's about feeling undervalued. Maybe her joke about bad dates isn't just humor, it's a clue to what she truly values. This level of attention does something extraordinary. It shifts the dynamic from performance to partnership. You're no longer trying to win her, you're seeking to know her. Here's the paradox few grasp. When you stop using conversations as stepping stones to validation and start treating them as exchanges of genuine curiosity, something unexpected happens. You become memorable, not because you wowed her with your stories, but because you made her feel heard, a rarity in a world of half-present men scanning rooms over shoulders. Practical steps start small. In your next interaction, impose a 3-to-1 ratio. For every minute you speak, give her 3. Notice verbal road signs. The craziest thing means an anecdote's coming. "I don't know" often precedes vulnerability. And here's the Stoic twist: when she pauses, resist the urge to jump in. Let silence breathe. Rufus taught that wisdom grows in quiet spaces, not chatter. The magic lies in what this practice does for you. Active listening isn't just about her, it's training for your own mind. Every time you curb the impulse to interrupt, you strengthen the Stoic discipline of sustained attention. Over time, you'll catch something revelatory. The less you worry about being interesting, the more interesting you become, because real connection isn't about dazzling someone. It's about daring to see them and letting yourself be seen in return. That's when insecurity crumbles, not through force, but through the quiet power of presence. There's a moment in every man's life when he has to choose between being impressive and being real, and that crossroads is where Stoicism plants its flag. Seneca, the philosopher who advised Emperor Nero, wrote brutally honest letters about this very tension. A man is as miserable as he thinks he is, but also as false as he pretends to be. That's the heart of character over charm, not rejecting social skills, but refusing to let them become a mask that suffocates who you truly are. Think about the last time you tweaked a story to seem funnier, or nodded along to opinions you didn't share just to keep the conversation smooth. In the moment, it feels like social lubrication, but over time, those tiny compromises erode something vital: your integrity. Here's why this matters more than you think. Charm is transactional, it seeks a specific result. Character is transformational, it shapes who you become regardless of outcomes. Seneca saw this clearly when he warned against men who spend their lives training their tongues while neglecting their souls. The irony: authenticity often is the best charisma. Ever met someone who spoke slowly, stumbled occasionally, yet held your attention effortlessly? That's the power of alignment, when words and values aren't just in the same room but holding hands. History offers a masterclass in this. Before his forced suicide, Seneca was ordered to compose a flattering speech for Nero to read to the Senate, a lie that would have spared his life. He refused, not out of pride, but because he'd spent decades teaching that life is never incomplete if it's lived with honor. That's the litmus test. If you stripped away all audience, all potential rewards, would your actions still feel true? Apply that to dating. Are you mirroring her humor because it's genuinely joyful, or because you crave her smile? Are you sharing vulnerable stories to connect or to manipulate empathy? The difference defines your character. Practical steps start with what Seneca called the evening audit. Each night, review 3 interactions. Did I say anything solely for approval? Did I withhold truth to avoid discomfort? The goal isn't self-flagellation, it's awareness. Then, practice micro-truths in low-stakes settings. Hate the band on her t-shirt. Instead of fake enthusiasm, try curiosity. What draws you to their music? You're not being contrarian, you're creating space for real connection over performative agreement. But here's the twist: authenticity isn't an excuse for brutality. The Stoics weren't blunt to the point of cruelty, they were precise with their honesty. Epictetus advised, don't speak unless your words improve upon silence. That's the balance. If your opinion wasn't asked for or serves no purpose beyond showcasing your realness, it's not virtue, it's ego in disguise. True character knows when to speak and when to listen. The reward, a confidence that doesn't flicker with the room's temperature. Seneca wrote, "He who is brave is free." In this context, bravery isn't about grand gestures, it's the courage to let your words and your values walk in step. And when they do, something unexpected happens. You stop worrying about, do they like me, and start knowing, I like how I showed up. That's the alchemy. The less you need validation, the more effortlessly it comes, not as a trophy, but as a byproduct of standing firmly in your own truth. So next time you're tempted to smooth edges for approval, remember Seneca's warning. A man enslaved to appearances is not one man, but many changing masks so often he forgets his own face. Character isn't about perfection, It's about ownership of your quirks, your convictions, even your awkward silences, because in the end, no amount of charm can compensate for the weight of a life half-lived. But a single moment lived authentically that echoes forever. Ever notice how your breath quickens when nerves strike, chest tightening, pulse racing, as if your body's screaming to flee? That's your autonomic nervous system hijacking your calm. But here's what the Stoics knew 2 millennia before modern science caught up. Breath isn't just a symptom of emotion, it's the steering wheel. Enter controlled breathing, a tactical tool so simple it's often overlooked, yet so potent it can reroute your entire state of mind in seconds. The Stoics practiced somatic techniques long before the term existed, understanding that mastering the body was the first step to mastering fear. Take the 4-7-8 method, a modern breathwork protocol that mirrors ancient Stoic principles. Inhale for 4 counts, hold for 7, exhale for 8. The numbers matter, but not for arithmetic. This ratio triggers your parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal for anxiety, by extending the exhale. Why? Longer exhalations signal safety to your primal brain, dialing down cortisol like a dimmer switch on panic. But the Stoics would argue it's deeper than biochemistry. When you consciously control your breath, you're embodying Epictetus' dictum. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. That gasp before approaching someone, it's not just air, it's a choice point. History offers a vivid example. Before addressing the Roman Senate, Cato the Younger would stand motionless, regulating his breath until his composure was ironclad. His peers mistook it for arrogance, but it was sheer discipline, using the body to sculpt the mind. Modern Navy SEAL deploy similar tactics, box breathing, 4-count inhales, holds, and exhales to steady their aim under fire. The parallel's uncanny. Whether facing lions or social landmines, the physiology of fear hasn't changed, but neither has the antidote. Here's how to wield it. Next time anxiety flares, pause mid-spiral. Place one hand on your belly, the other on your chest. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 seconds, feeling your diaphragm expand, not your shoulders rise. Hold for 7, noticing the slight tension. That's your nervous system recalibrating. Exhale for 8 through pursed lips, as if blowing out a candle. Repeat 3 cycles. The magic happens in the mechanics. By overriding your body's panic script, you prove to your subconscious that you're in charge, not the fear. But the Stoic twist: pair this with prosoch mindful awareness. As you breathe, observe the sensations without judgment. My heart is pounding, my palms are damp. Labeling detaches you from the storm, creating space to ask, is this feeling a fact or just a reaction? That's the essence of somatic Stoicism, not suppressing nerves, but meeting them with curiosity until their grip loosens. The beauty of breathwork is its invisibility. No one sees you doing it, yet its effects ripple outward. Your voice drops an octave, your gestures slow. Your gaze stabilizes, because confidence isn't just mental, it's physiological. And when you anchor yourself in the rhythm of your own breath, you carry an unshakable calm no external reaction can disrupt. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in The Thick of Battle, the mind adapts and converts to its own purposes the obstacle to our acting. Your nervous systems revolt. Just another obstacle to alchemize, one breath at a time. Marcus Aurelius began each day with a ritual that would baffle most modern men. He didn't check his phone, scan his schedule, or even reach for coffee. Instead, he whispered reminders like, I will meet ungrateful, violent, treacherous men today, but I cannot be harmed by any of them. At first glance, it reads like pessimism. But embedded in those words is a radical reframe. Every interaction, even the uncomfortable ones, is an opportunity to practice virtue. This is gratitude reimagined, not as fluffy positivity, but as psychological armor. When you approach dating with this mindset, rejection stops being a personal indictment and becomes just another scenario to hone your resilience. Think about how most men view approaching someone attractive. It's a high-stakes test where failure means humiliation. But what if you flip the script? That woman at the bookstore isn't a judge, she's a sparring partner. Whether she smiles or scoffs, she's giving you something invaluable, the chance to practice courage, to refine your communication, to learn how to handle uncertainty with grace. Aurelius wrote, "The impediment becomes the way." In this context, the impediment isn't her potential disinterest, it's your own fear. And the way is using that fear as fuel to grow stronger. Science validates this ancient wisdom. Studies on gratitude journaling show that participants who regularly note opportunities for growth, not just successes, report higher resilience and lower stress. The Stoics took it further. They didn't just appreciate favorable outcomes, they revered the struggles that forged their character. When you wake up tomorrow, try Aurelius' morning ritual with a dating twist. Instead of dreading potential rejection, whisper, "Today I'll meet indifference, awkward pauses, maybe even sharp dismissals, and each will teach me something new." Suddenly, you're not walking into a minefield, you're entering a classroom. Here's how to make it tangible. Keep a training log with 2 columns, what happened and what it taught me. That time you froze mid-conversation, it revealed where you need to rehearse more. The date who ghosted, she reminded you that attraction can't be negotiated. Even the cringeworthy moments become data points in your evolution. This isn't about sugarcoating pain, it's about mining it for wisdom. The magic lies in the shift of ownership. When gratitude becomes your default setting, you stop seeing others as gatekeepers of your worth and start recognizing them as collaborators in your growth. That's the Stoic edge. While other men curse their setbacks, you're collecting them not as scars but as badges of progress. Because every no isn't a closed door, it's a mirror showing you where to grow next. And that's a gift no yes could ever replace. Ever studied the expressions on ancient Stoic busts, those marble faces carved with unshakable calm? There's a reason their lips aren't curled in forced grins or twisted with tension. They embody eutrapelia, the Stoic art of poised composure, where the face isn't just a reflection of emotion, but a tool to shape it. This isn't about masking nerves with a plastic smile. It's about harnessing the subtle feedback loop between expression and mindset to cultivate real confidence. Science now confirms what Zeno and Epictetus knew instinctively. Relaxing your brow and softening your mouth sends safety signals to your brain, dialing down cortisol and dialing up presence. Think of your face as the control panel for your nervous system. When you approach someone attractive and your jaw clenches, your amygdala interprets that tension as danger. Cue the sweaty palms and racing thoughts. But when you consciously relax your facial muscles, tongue resting lightly on the roof of your mouth, lips slightly parted as if about to whisper a secret, you trick your brain into believing all is well. The Stoics called this prosoch, mindful attention to physical habits that steer emotional states. Marcus Aurelius practiced it daily, writing, "The face is the mirror of the soul, but it also writes upon it." History offers a masterclass in this. During the tumultuous year of the 4 emperors, when Rome was a powder keg of civil war, Stoic philosopher Helvidius Priscus addressed the Senate with a face so serene it unnerved his enemies. They expected fear, he gave them tranquility. That's the power of calibrated expression, not suppression but mastery. Here's how to train it. First, audit your default face. Catch yourself in mirrors or phone reflections. Are your eyebrows knit, jaw tight? Correct with micro adjustments. Imagine warm honey melting down your forehead. Second, practice the Stoic half smile, not a toothy grin, but the subtle upturn of someone savoring good news they're not yet sharing. This isn't performative, it's physiological. Studies show even forced smiles reduce stress hormones. The Stoic version, more Mona Lisa than clown, an inward amusement at life's chaos. But the real magic happens when you pair this with sympatheia, the Stoic recognition of shared humanity. Your calm face becomes a gift to others, giving them permission to relax too. Watch how conversations shift when you replace intensity with gentle attentiveness. The woman who seemed guarded mirrors your openness. The awkward pause feels like mutual thoughtfulness rather than judgment. This practice isn't about perfection. It's about noticing when tension creeps in during a lull, when your eyes dart away mid-sentence and gently steering back. Like a sailor constantly adjusting the tiller, you're not chasing stillness, you're navigating toward it. And over time, that practiced composure becomes second nature, not because you've erased nerves, but because you've learned to wear them lightly, like those ancient busts weathering centuries with quiet grace. Imagine returning from a battle and simply tossing your armor in a corner without examining the dents. That's what most men do after social interactions. They either obsess over missteps or brush past them entirely. Stoicism offers a third path, post-interaction analysis, a deliberate practice of reviewing conversations not to self-flagellate, but to distill wisdom. Think of it like a Roman general debriefing his troops not to punish but to sharpen strategy. The goal isn't to tally wins and losses, but to identify what Seneca called the teachable moment hidden in every exchange. Start by shifting your metrics. Instead of asking, "Did she like me?" focus on, "Did I act in alignment with my values?" Break it down into 3 Stoic layers. Effort: did I approach with courage? Attention: was I fully present? And integrity: did I compromise my honesty to impress? For example, that joke you forced to keep the mood light, note it not as a failure but as data revealing where you prioritized her reaction over your authenticity. History offers a powerful model in Epictetus' discourses, where students would revisit dialogues to dissect their responses. One anecdote stands out. A student recounted nervously laughing at a crude joke to fit in. Epictetus didn't shame him, he simply asked, "What part of your soul did you mortgage for that laughter?" That's the essence of Stoic review, uncovering the tiny betrayals of self that erode confidence. Here's how to implement this without spiraling. First, journal immediately after interactions while details are fresh. Structure entries with 2 columns. Observed facts like "I interrupted twice" and lesson: listen to understand, not respond. Second, impose a 24-hour delay before analyzing emotionally charged exchanges. Time strips the sting from raw feelings. Finally, end each review by noting one thing you did right. Maybe you held eye contact despite nerves or gracefully pivoted a tense moment. The magic lies in consistency. Over weeks, patterns emerge. You'll notice certain triggers. Maybe silence makes you babble or compliments make you deflect. These aren't flaws, they're training modules. Like Marcus Aurelius reviewing his day's actions each evening, you're not judging your performance, you're curating your growth. This practice isn't about perfection, it's about progress. That awkward pause you replayed 10 times, it taught you to embrace quiet, the joke that fell flat. It revealed your authentic humor lives elsewhere. Even rejection becomes fruitful when mined this way, not as proof of inadequacy, but as feedback refining your approach. Because Stoics don't fear missteps, they fear missing the lessons hidden within them. And that's how you turn every conversation, smooth or stumbling, into fuel for the man you're becoming. There's a quiet ritual practiced by everyone from Navy SEAL to Olympic athletes, one the Stoics perfected 2,000 years earlier. It's not about physical training or strategy sessions. It's the deliberate programming of your mind each morning with what Marcus Aurelius called the day's premeditations, short, targeted phrases designed to anchor your focus in what truly matters. These aren't fluffy affirmations plastered over insecurity. They're battle-tested mantras forged in Stoic fire, compressing volumes of wisdom into sentences you can carry into your day like mental armor. Consider the difference between telling yourself, "I'm confident around women," versus the Stoic alternative, "I control my effort, not results." The first is a wish. The second is a compass. It doesn't deny nerves, it redirects your energy to the one arena where you hold absolute power, your actions. This is the essence of Stoic affirmations, not positive thinking but precise thinking. Epictetus, who transformed his enslavement into a masterclass on freedom, framed it perfectly. First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do. Your morning words aren't magic spells, they're the blueprint for the person you're choosing to become. History offers a striking example. Before dawn, Roman generals like Scipio Africanus would stand barefoot on cold stone, reciting lines like, "Today, I will meet those who test me, and I will thank them." This wasn't vanity, it was vaccination against distraction. By mentally rehearsing their principles, they inoculated themselves against the chaos of battle, or in your case, the unpredictability of human connection. When you whisper, "Her reaction is her business, my integrity is mine," while brewing coffee, you're not just calming nerves, you're rewiring millennia of social wiring that equates rejection with danger. Here's how to craft your own Stoic affirmations. First, mine the texts. Marcus Aurelius' Meditations is a goldmine. The obstacle is the way becomes every no is navigation. Epictetus, we suffer more in imagination than reality, turns into, fear is a story I can rewrite. Second, keep them actionable. Instead of I am fearless, try I greet discomfort as my teacher. The phrasing matters. It should remind you of agency, not absolve you of effort, but the real power lies in the pairing. Don't just recite, visualize. As you say, I own my energy, feel your shoulders drop and breath deepen. When you repeat curiosity over conquest, picture yourself genuinely listening rather than strategizing. This is what the Stoics called fantasia, the art of imprinting ideas on your nervous system through vivid mental rehearsal. Science now confirms this method. Studies on implementation intentions show coupling specific phrases with sensory details boosts follow-through by up to 300%. The magic unfolds over weeks. That mantra approach, don't perform, starts as a whisper, then becomes a reflex. The woman across the room, she's no longer a test, she's a chance to practice your principles. And that's when you realize these morning words aren't just preparing you for conversations, they're rebuilding your relationship with fear itself, not by eliminating it, but by giving it a seat at the table, while you keep your hand firmly on the wheel. Close your day as you began it. Seneca wrote nightly letters dissecting his progress. What affirmations did I live today? Where did I forget them? This isn't self-judgment, it's sharpening the blade. Because the goal isn't perfection, it's presence. And when you commit to this daily dialogue between aspiration and action, something shifts. Those Stoic phrases stop being words you say and start becoming truths you inhabit. And that's when confidence stops being something you chase and starts being the ground you walk on. So there you have it, 25 Stoic practices that don't just patch over insecurity, but dismantle it at the root. Think of these as tools in a mental workshop, each one forged in the fires of ancient wisdom and battle, tested by centuries of philosophers, warriors, and men who faced far worse than a cold approach. You don't need to wield them all at once. Start with one. Maybe it's the dichotomy of control, reminding yourself that her reaction isn't your business, your courage is. Or perhaps it's negative visualization, playing out the worst-case scenario until it loses its fangs. These aren't quick fixes, they're lifelong disciplines. Like a blacksmith tempering steel, you'll hammer them into your daily life through repetition, not revelation. History's most unshakable men, from Marcus Aurelius to Epictetus, weren't born confident. They trained it, and that's the key. Every time you choose presence over panic, curiosity over conquest, or integrity over approval, you're not just navigating a conversation. You're sculpting your character. The irony, the less you chase validation, the more effortlessly it finds you, because confidence isn't about being flawless. It's about being grounded in what you control, grounded in who you're becoming, grounded in the quiet certainty that no single interaction, good or bad, defines you. Now it's your turn. Which practice will you take into the wild first? Will it be the Stoic pause, that split-second breath before reacting? Or maybe Amor Fati, embracing every awkward silence as fuel for growth? Drop a comment below, tell me which tool resonates and why, because the real work begins when the video ends. This isn't just knowledge, it's a challenge. A challenge to stop spectating your life and start living it with the clarity, courage, and calm of a man who knows his worth isn't up for debate. The Stoics didn't change the world by reading. They changed it by doing. Your move.